Well, Donnie, we're here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, episode 8 in the Nursing Outside the Box show. Welcome back.
Welcome, David. How's the weather in the neighborhood in Iowa?
Well, I tell you, you're rubbing it in. You Floridians really don't like us here in Iowa. We're always a little bit overcast, and it's not as sunny and warm as it is there in beautiful Orlando.
Well, I don't know. I've been seeing some pretty pictures of flowers up there.
Yeah, we do get some nice tulips around Pella, Iowa, but today's not talking about tulips. We're talking about blooming as entrepreneurs. Let's talk a little bit more about what the show is going to take on today.
Well, last week we talked about different business models, right? And which fits you. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what does it actually look like to run a business? Because the thoughts that we have in our head actually create our reality. The things that we believe, once we believe it, our brain starts looking for ways to make what we believe true, right? And I know that what I believed, if somebody asked me 5 years ago, hey, Donnie, you want to start your own business? I'd be like, no, I never wanted to run my own business. But what I did want was to help people. What I did want was to work from home. And I had these ideas in my mind of what it looked like to run a business that were not true. And those ideas actually kept me from exploring that opportunity. And, today I actually posted a little bit of just a fun question. When you think of the term business ownership, what do you think of? And a couple of the responses that I got was number 1, freedom. Number 2, impossible. Somebody else actually said limitless possibilities. So it's crazy how, the same question, different perceptions, and independence. These were some of the first gut reactions people had to the idea of running a business. Do you remember, David, because I know that it's kind of in your genes, right? The whole idea of business ownership and entrepreneurship, but do you remember your first thoughts on the idea of running your own business?
Yeah, I think that it's such a hard thing for me to look back on and wonder if I ever doubted myself in being able to run my own business, because it was part of my heritage. My family had their own private business. It was in the automotive repair business and the auto collision business. So it wasn't in something that I was interested in doing, but I knew it was possible, and I knew that you could succeed doing it because my parents were doing it. But I've heard a quote be said that says that the person that controls the definition of a word controls the argument. And when you're trying to discuss this idea of business ownership or entrepreneurialism, you can kind of get into this conversation and debate on, what is risk and what is risky. And sometimes people look at being a business owner as very risky, but so is being an employee. Being an employee of an organization is risky because they could fire you, downsize you, change your job descriptions, and increase your workload, decrease your pay, decrease your benefits. So that's risky as well. And when you take on a business opportunity, you assume risk. That's actually in the definition of the word entrepreneur. It's a person that assumes risks and takes on those risks and understands that being a business owner has risk, but they can be calculated risks, and they can actually be more controlled than what you can be in an environment where you're an employee. Because being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, you have some control over what you do and how you do it and how you can improve things, where in an employee position, you may not have that kind of power.
You said something that I thought was kind of interesting. It was part of your heritage. This is what you grew up seeing as just normal. And that was not the norm for me. I didn't grow up seeing that. And I'm curious to find out from the nurses watching, what was that they thought of, for those, for example, I wonder about those that said freedom and limitless options. I happen to know some of those people, and I know that they actually do run their own businesses. So they're speaking from that reality. And then I'm curious to find out for those that think impossible, what was their surrounding? Did they know anybody that ran a business, and what kind of experience did they witness to kind of make them think that it's something that's impossible? But, just from those ideas that people posted of what they think of when they run their own business, I kind of go back to also thinking, what I thought of in terms of growing up. My girls are 7 now, and they actually were asking when they could start sitting in the front seat of the car. And I told them they needed to be at least 13. and they're thinking, well, I can't wait to be 13 so I can sit in the front seat. So this is their mind, this is their perception of what it looks like to grow up. And then I'm thinking, of all the other aspects of reality for a 13-year-old girl that they might want to look forward to, or they might not. And that's the truth when it comes to running a business too. I mean, you were talking about risk. There's pros and cons to everything, right? It's just a matter of understanding what is the reality of it. Perception is one thing and reality is another. I could see the sky as purple, but guess what? The sky is blue, it's blue. And so a couple of the different myths that, or beliefs that we've identified or surrounding the idea of business ownership, when we talk about freedom, I've heard nurses talking about, just being able to do whatever they want to do. Is that true, David? When you run your own business, do you get to just do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it?
Of course, you can do whatever you want to do and whenever you want to do it, but you may go broke in the process. And so there are some, that's what I would consider to be risky business, when you don't have a plan to get done the work that needs to be getting done. The work is oftentimes flexible, but it's not optional. So if you think that you're going to get a chance to control the flow of work or the time of work, that may be true, but it also may be untrue, because you may take on a business opportunity, and if you're out there trying to create your own business and you're in charge of marketing and you're in charge of customer service and fulfillment and all the things in between, accounting and HR and legal, you may actually have more on your plate than you do now as a nurse. And so, you have to be aware of what you're taking on, and then just know that it may be flexible, but it is not optional.
That's the truth, and that's the beauty of it. It's flexible, which means you can decide where you're going to get it done. But because of the independence that comes with it, and because if you want to continue running your own business, you've got to be profitable enough to make ends meet, at least, right? That means that certain things have to get done. But the beauty of running your own business is that you get to choose to work something that you're passionate in, right? You get to, and that is, I think, a really key element to the idea of running your own business, is that it has to be something that you really enjoy, because you're going to end up having to do it sometimes when you might not feel like it. I actually just started watching this show called Girl Boss. Have you seen it, David?
No, I haven't.
I love it. I mean, talk about, completely outside of what you imagine in terms of running a business. It's about Sophia Moruso. She actually is a real person, and she is a millionaire now, and she started an eBay store selling vintage clothing. And this show, of course, is a dramatization of the whole story, but it was kind of cute watching her talk. I guess she was a fan of the OC, back in the 90s. And there was this key point in the whole series, and she got a business call, and she's like, oh my goodness, what's going to go on? And she took her call and she walked into the next room, and when she came back, she's like, I cannot believe that business got in the way of this life-altering event. And it sounds so silly, but the truth is that she's a millionaire now. And she did this. She was able to just pick up a call in the middle of a TV show. Now, for her, it was life-altering, right? For me, it might be, I've taken calls while I watch my kids do gymnastics, right? And the fact is that I get to watch them do gymnastics while I'm working, which takes a couple of minutes, right? Whereas if I was at a practice, seeing a strep throat or an ear infection, I would not be watching my kids play. So, there's that give and take, there's that flexibility. Yes, you get to do whatever you want, but understanding that you're ultimately responsible for the results that you create, right?
Yeah. Well, Andrew joined us on Facebook Live in our Nursing Outside the Box group, and he said the comment, most people like the safety, security of a regular paycheck, benefits, and predictability. But that isn't always as predictable as what we like to have it. And that's what we want to bring to light, is that there's risky business inside the nursing world, inside the box. And there's also some risks that you take on when you get outside the box. And while you work extremely hard, sometimes 12-hour shifts or more, you work double shifts at a hospital or clinic or in some sort of a nursing career, and you don't necessarily get paid for that additional labor on your life, the things that you miss. And Donnie had an experience where she couldn't get away for a major life event, and that had an emotional cost to it. But we don't necessarily figure in those costs when we're giving it to somebody else. But when we get into our own work environment where we're actually an entrepreneur or we're running our own business, we actually have some of that flexibility that we can take, and we can make up for some missed time at later times during the week, or we can end up doing a double shift in our own business and make up for lost time there. Donnie, talk a little bit more about your experience in that shift where you said, you know what, I really want to get this time off. And they said no, which was very predictable and of negative nature.
Yeah, that was predictable. Well, my brother is in the Navy, and he was supposed to get shipped off to Afghanistan. This was a couple of years ago. And I requested some time off to go see him before he left. Now, you know, it's kind of unstable over there, you know, especially a couple of years ago. And so I didn't know what would happen with my brother going overseas. You know, I honestly wasn't sure if I would see him again. And that was important for me to go and spend some time with him. And I requested the time off, and I got a big fat no. And that was so devastating. You know, it doesn't matter how much you love your job, which I did. It doesn't matter how much you love the people you work with, which I did. It doesn't matter how well you get along with your supervisors, which I did. The fact remains that they were running a business and they needed bodies. And so they had the power to tell me what I could and couldn't do. And so, you know, in terms of the whole myths that we're trying to bust, I'm so glad that Andrew pointed that out in terms of benefits and security, right? Because those were big, big things for me. Even though I had this experience with my brother, if you still, you know, at that week, if you had come to me and said, Donnie, go and start your own business so you don't have to deal with that, I'd be like, no, I need benefits and security. Okay. And so what you were talking about in terms of the definition of the word is so key. Because for some people, when they see business ownership, they see limitless possibilities, which is actually what Andrew said. You know, he's the one that said it's limitless options. And yet for somebody else, what they saw was impossible, right? And so when we talk about benefits, what is the definition of benefits? You know, coming from the employee mindset, my definition of benefits was insurance. It was retirement, you know, matching funds for retirement. Those were some of the things that I saw as benefits that I would give up if I was running my own business. Yeah. And time off, you know, I thought, I get paid time off. That was another benefit that I thought I would be giving up. And what I found was that I'm not an employee anymore, and I still have health insurance, you know, and I was actually paying for health insurance as an employee as well. It's just that they used to take the money out of my paycheck before I ever saw it. And so it felt like it wasn't my responsibility. It felt like they were taking care of everything. But they weren't. All they were doing was automatically deducting it from my account. Then when it came to paid time off, they weren't giving me anything for free. I got to tell you that much. I earned every minute that I got off, because if I didn't work those hours, I didn't collect the time to be off. And then once I reached that limit, too bad, so sad. I couldn't get any more time off. Or I could, and I wouldn't get paid for it, right? And so those were some of the things that I thought were benefits. Now, running my own business, I still have benefits. I still have insurance. I still have health insurance. I don't have to worry about getting paid for my time off, because I can work from anywhere, which means I can take time off whenever I want, and I can just fit in a couple of activities here and there and get paid while I'm away. Last month, I was in Costa Rica. I got paid while I was there, you know? And yes, while I was in Costa Rica, I actually did 2 calls. I was there for 4 days. And I was on the phone for maybe 30 minutes, you know, and having to work did not interfere with my ability to be in another country. And so that to me is a benefit. Another benefit, I got to tell you, is that my commute to work is all of 2 minutes walking from my bedroom to the office. So guess what? I'm saving on gas mileage, right? And childcare. I hear my kids playing next door. So that's another benefit that I have of running my own business. What are some of the benefits that you found, David, in terms of running your own business?
Well, I'm kind of a financially driven guy. So, I like the idea or the benefit of being able to give myself a raise, and it becomes effective immediately as soon as I become more effective. And so if I want to do more, I can, and that automatically increases my income. And so having some control over that. I also like the idea of actually being able to grow beyond myself and, giving other people opportunities to be able to do things that maybe they really enjoy. I mean, having a career and being employed someplace is not bad. It's only bad if you think it's bad. And if you continually go to that bad place and complain about it, that's the only time it's bad. There's a lot of people that love their careers and they're willing to sacrifice their time off and their families and things of that nature to do shifts that are taking care of other people. And they continue to make those sacrifices with joy because they love what they do. But we're talking to those people that maybe are looking for a plan B. They're looking for something outside the box. And maybe they're not fully prepared to jump in 2 feet at a time and leave the box. But maybe they're ready to put 1 foot outside the box and explore what it looks like to begin to create some of these entrepreneurship benefits, where you can actually start to control some of your future and maybe create your own vision and some of your own dreams and make some of those things come true. And lots of different vehicles to do that, but that's what we're talking about here, is actually focusing on those benefits that you'd like to create and then putting yourself in a vehicle to go out there and make them a reality.
Well, I love that you talked about raises, because let me tell you, I was a nurse for 16 years and, working, inside the box. And I think the largest raise I ever got was 3%. I'm talking even when I went from having my bachelor's to having my master's and becoming a nurse practitioner. So the most I ever got in a raise was 3% in a year. My first year running my business, I gave myself a 50% raise. I had never, ever gotten anything like that before. And yet when I was the one that was in charge of the results, of the activity, of what I was doing, then I could give myself a raise whenever I wanted. Right. And the other myth that there is that there's no security. And you kind of touched on that as well. But, you can get fired from a job. And one of the reasons I became a nurse was because I thought there would be job security. I thought the world would never run out of sick people and I would always have a job. And when I became a nurse practitioner, I remember, I was expected to see about 30 patients a day. And there were times that there were no patients. I remember there were days I would see 8. No, you can imagine, you're expected to see 30 and I was seeing 8. It wasn't up to me. It wasn't up to me how many patients were coming in. It was up to the practice to bring them in. And yet if it continued at that pace, David, you're a financially driven person. Do you think they could afford to keep me if I was continuing to see only 8 patients a day? It was only a matter of time, right? Before they said, well, maybe we don't need you, Donnie, goodbye. And I've had to experience that twice in my own family because my husband got laid off twice. So the first time he got laid off, I was 8 months pregnant with twins. Let me tell you how much fun that was, how much security there was in that, okay? And the second time was not as devastating as the first time because I already had my business going. And that was actually the first time that I started seeing the kind of security there is in running my own business, because all it took was one person to tell my husband, we don't need you anymore. We've restructured and your position has been eliminated. And yet in running my own business, I would need to have at least 40 people fire me before I'm completely out in the cold, And what are some of the ways that you see security in running your own business?
Well, I think that just knowing that my efforts determine my income. And so being able to be in control of my own efforts, that does take some self-discipline. It does require some learned habits, and not everybody's prepared to work for themselves. That's why it's a good idea to start doing something on your own while you're still employed with somebody else, because there's an entrepreneurial mindset that needs to be developed over time. It doesn't happen overnight. And so if you can begin that process sooner versus later, even if you have a part-time business where you're working it, for a couple hours per week, that can start to help you to learn those skills to make that shift. I personally love the idea of creating my own job description. I just wonder how many nurses, when they were thinking about going to nursing school, if they were given an option to become an employee and a nurse and inside of a hospital or traditional inside the box type of opportunity, and they were told that they were going to be told what to do. They were going to be given a job description, and that may change, and they wouldn't really have any say in that if they were going to be told what they're going to get paid, or if they had another option. And the other option was you can be in control. The more people that you help, the more income that you actually earn. And if you actually equip and train and support other nurses, you can actually become more significant, because you can actually bring more people into this world who care about the same things that you care about. And when you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to duplicate yourself in terms of the services that you offer, or be able to fulfill the products that you're actually offering to the world. And that allows you to grow and develop. I mean, you look at some of the major influencers in the world, and they have given people the opportunity to have an amazing career because they themselves stepped outside the box, assumed some risks, and actually embraced this thing called being an entrepreneur. And without those people, as we say, there's only two types of people in the world. There's those people that go out there and live their dreams and change their world. And then there's the people that depend on those people that live their dreams and change their world. And it's okay if you're one of those people that are depending on other people to change the world. But if you're one of those world changers, you're one of those people that says, I want to change my world. Maybe I can't change the entire world, but I can change my world. I can change my physical health. I need to get healthier. I want to get happier. I want to be less stressful. I don't want to be in a toxic environment where I'm surrounded by people that are constantly negative or shouting and yelling and things of that nature. If you're in an environment like that, it's probably having an impact on your relationships, your physical health, and financially. If you're not earning enough income to do the things in life that you really want to do, that has an extreme cost, and it's very risky, because at the end of life, if you haven't lived the life that you wanted to create, you may be having some regrets. And there's nothing that you want to be free from when you're ending your life, whenever that may be, and that's regrets. And if you're not taking the chances because you're scared, or because you're considering this idea that, what are my parents going to think, or what's my husband or spouse going to think if I tell them I'm going to go do something that's been on my heart and been my dream, don't be succumb to fear. You may have some resistance when you go out there and chase your dream and live the things in life that you really want to create, but you may also change the world for your family, for your kids. I mean, I just think about if my parents didn't go into business for themselves, maybe I wouldn't have had the same level of confidence that I do today. So everything that you do has a ripple effect, not only in your immediate life, but also into your future and the legacies to come.
Well, in talking about security, it goes back to that question that you raised in the beginning in terms of risk, right? Because when people are talking about job security, they're wondering, how risky is it for me to just depend on my own efforts? And a couple of ways that I've found to lessen the risk is to kind of, you always talk about it, David, how success leaves clues, right? And so having mentors, using systems that have been proven successful, these are some of the things that will reduce risk. Now, we're of course not suggesting that people go out and quit their job today. That's definitely not what we're suggesting. But we don't try this at home. But what we are saying is that if you think there's no security in running your own business, that your brain is going to find evidence for that. Okay, if you believe that. But if you believe that there is security in running your own business, your brain is going to find evidence, and it's going to make it happen, so that you're going to create the security that you need. Really understanding, what does security mean to me? Does it mean making X amount of money every month? Well, if that's what it means to you, then how can you go about making X amount of money every month with whatever it is that you want to do, with your passion? Okay. And so we've talked about a couple of different myths. We talked about the whole freedom to do whatever you want to do, and how that's really, really, it is true, except that if you want to stay in business, you might have to do things you don't necessarily want to do, right? The other idea is that when you have freedom, you don't have to work. The money's going to just come on in. And once again, that's not the truth, right? We've got to really put the effort in. The hours may be optional, but flexible, but they're not optional, right? And then the idea of no benefits and no security, we've kind of tackled that as well. Another big idea that I hear from people often is you need a lot of money to get a business started, and to get it like a solid business started. Do you agree with that idea, David? What has been your experience?
I don't think that you have to have anything other than desire to start a business, because in this world, and most of you live here in the United States of America, where it's a free enterprise world. So you can actually sell a service without actually having a business. You can actually sell a service that is, whether that's nursing care, elder care, whether that's health coaching, you can offer that service to the world, or to the United States of America in some cases. And if somebody purchases that service, you can go find somebody to fulfill that service. That's the beautiful part about this world in America that we live in, is that we're in a free enterprise system. We're not in a communist system where we have control by the government that tells us what to do. We actually can be in control. It's called the land of opportunity. And so regardless of whether you have, $10 in the bank or 10 million, you've got options. 10 million, a few more, but we live in one of the richest countries in all of history. There's plenty of money to go around. What we're missing are people that are willing to hustle, and nurses are willing to hustle. Nurses are some of the hardest working people that I've met, but they do so for other people's dreams most of the time, and not their own. And oftentimes they feel a sense of sacrifice and regret because of that. So that's what we want to awaken people up to, Donnie, is the fact that they can work hard on their own dream, and they can start in a part-time, spare time manner, and then they can evolve that into something just like you did and many others have done, where it becomes a very rewarding, and you get rewarded handsomely for the services that you offer the world.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking about, I've been able to do that. And as I was mentioning, I never thought that I wanted to run a business. And I did it because I got plugged in with the system, And so for the nurses that are interested in the flexibility and the balance and the purpose, we would love to help. We actually wrote a book earlier this year, Nurses Health Coaching, a nurse's career path to more flexibility, purpose, and balance. And for those of you that are interested, just go to nurseshealthcoaching.com/ebook, and you'll be able to download it free. And so for those that are looking for that, we would absolutely love to help, because these myths that may be either standing in your way or keeping you from moving forward, that's what they are. They're myths. And we would be happy to partner with those that are hungry and that want it, and that are looking for security and they're looking for benefits. We would love to help you achieve that.
Yeah, there's many, many nurses out there that are making the transition to more entrepreneurial lifestyles. And some of them continue to be nurses and work in a 9-to-5 job, but they use their business to maybe accomplish other things in their life, to give them more fulfillment, more purpose, more freedom, more income. So again, this is one of those things where you take it at whatever level you want, whether you want to start part-time, spare time, or whether you want to do something full-time. If you want to do something, spend some time doing it. Donnie, how many years did you go to school to become a nurse?
I went 5 years for my bachelor's, and then I went another 3 years for my master's. So total.
And so 3 years in a master's program, and a lot of the nurses that we're working with have advanced degrees, and they're getting even more educated. And those educational student loans and the money that they're paying for tuition, what's the approximate cost that a nurse would have to pay?
Oh my goodness, it varies from where they go, but I know so many nurses that have over $100,000 in debt from student loans.
Yeah.
So they feel trapped. Here they're looking for benefits and security, and yet they feel trapped because now they need to pay this all off.
So a lot of the nurses have actually gone into debt to go to school to become an employee and to get a good job. To become an entrepreneur, it requires you to put in some investment. It may not be financially, it may be time, but if you spend time studying it, and studying it could be something as simple as reading our book, just to give yourself some perspective of what other nurses are doing, but studying the things that are of interest to you, picking up a business book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great entrepreneurial educational piece that just talks about the idea of becoming an entrepreneur and moving from the employee quadrant to becoming self-employed or to becoming a business owner or an investor in other people's businesses. That's a great read, and it's something that is not specific to nursing, but it's a great educational piece. But if you start to study people that are doing this thing, studying people like Donnie and myself, or other nurses that are succeeding, that are inside of our Nursing Outside the Box group, we've got a whole bunch of people that are extremely successful in what they do. And maybe that's the place that you need to go to, is be mentored by one of us, and to give us what your dreams are, and let us give you some feedback and some next steps and how you can pursue it. We're also going to be doing a live health coach training event in Dallas, Texas on July 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be a 3-day health coach training program, and also it's going to be a personal wellness program. There's 2 different tracks: people that want to just get healthier on an individual basis, and then people that actually want to create a career around health coaching. 3 days, and it's nothing like getting a nursing degree, is it, Donnie?
No. Let me tell you about, nursing conferences that I attend, and the toothpicks that I need to, make sure I take with me to make sure I stay awake. No, it's so much fun to be surrounded by, wellness-minded and enthusiastic people that believe they can change the world. But I just wanted to respond real quick to Andrew made a comment. He asked, as a nurse practitioner, if it ever crossed my mind to start my own practice. And the whole idea is really going for what you want in your life. And if I started my own practice as a nurse practitioner, I would not be here. My commute to work would not be 2 minutes. I would not be the childcare for my kids. I would not be able to see patients from Costa Rica, And so what I wanted was to have the flexibility. I wanted to have the income, but I wanted to really have the lifestyle. And what I found was that health coaching kind of married all of that together. I don't have to put my hands on somebody to be able to help them. I don't have to use a stethoscope to hear their heart. I actually use a telephone. And so, really the key here is to really inspire people to go back to what is it they imagined life would be like when they grew up. Oftentimes we ask people, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so we think, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a teacher, I want to be whatever. My daughter wants to be a musketeer. But the key is really, what do you see life looking like when you grow up, right? And that's the question that I asked myself. And in the process of running your own business, there's these pros and cons. Today, we kind of highlighted some of those, and, it depends on your perspective on what's a pro and what's a con. But eventually, you're going to have down moments when you run a business, okay? And so next week, we're going to talk about some of the benefits of failing.
Yeah, we're going to fail forward. We're going to show you how to take mistakes and turn them into triumphs and celebrations, and how entrepreneurs go from failures to failures without losing enthusiasm and live the life of their dreams because of it. So I hope that everybody joins us next week. We're looking forward to continuing the conversation on nursing outside the box and how to help you all live your dreams and change your world.